The people who hide the biggest secrets are usually the ones everyone thinks they already know. On a rainy Thursday evening in Manhattan, the doors of Sterling House opened, and the atmosphere inside the restaurant changed before a single word was spoken. The dining room had been alive only moments earlier. Glasses clinked softly beneath crystal chandeliers. Business executives discussed deals over expensive wine. Couples shared quiet conversations near the windows overlooking the city. Servers moved gracefully between tables carrying silver trays and polished confidence. Then she arrived, Sophia Whitmore. Even among New York's elite, her name carried weight. She was the daughter of Charles Whitmore, the billionaire founder of one of the largest investment firms in America. Newspapers followed her. Society magazines featured her. Charity galas competed for her attendance. Yet none of those things explained why waitresses at Sterling House feared serving her. Near the hostess stand, two servers exchanged worried looks the moment they saw her enter. One quietly glanced away. Another suddenly became very interested in reorganizing menus that did not need organizing. Even the manager straightened his jacket and checked his appearance. Sophia noticed none of it. Or perhaps she noticed all of it and simply no longer cared. She walked through the restaurant with measured confidence. Her blonde hair rested perfectly against the shoulders of a cream-colored designer coat. Her expression revealed little. Not cold exactly. Not unfriendly. Just distant. Like someone who had spent years living behind invisible walls. The hostess immediately led her toward her usual table near the windows. Several employees visibly relaxed once she was seated. Unfortunately, someone still needed to serve her. "Who has table 12?" the manager asked. Silence answered him. Nobody volunteered. Nobody even looked in the direction of the table. The manager sighed. This happened almost every time Sophia visited. She rarely complained. She rarely raised her voice. Yet somehow people still feared making mistakes around her. The pressure came from her reputation more than her behavior. Then a voice broke the silence. "I can take it." The employees turned. Olivia Bennett stood near the service station holding a silver tray. 27 years old. Blonde hair tied neatly back. Calm blue eyes. She had worked at Sterling House for less than 3 weeks. The manager looked surprised. "Are you sure?" Olivia smiled politely. "She is a customer." Several co-workers exchanged glances. One server leaned closer. "You have no idea who that is." Olivia looked toward the window table. "I know exactly who she is." The server lowered his voice. "Then why would you volunteer?" Olivia shrugged. "Someone has to." 5 minutes later, she approached table 12 carrying a menu and a warm smile. Rain slid down the massive windows behind Sophia. Manhattan glowed beneath the evening storm. The city lights reflected softly against the glass. Sophia looked up as Olivia arrived. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Something unusual happened. Sophia appeared surprised. Not because Olivia approached. Because Olivia did not appear nervous. "Good evening," Olivia said. "Welcome back to Sterling House." Sophia studied her for several seconds. "You are new." It was not a question. Olivia nodded. 3 weeks. Sophia closed the menu she had barely opened. "Most people do not last very long here." Olivia smiled. "I hope to stay longer than that." Something almost resembling amusement flickered across Sophia's face. Almost. Then it disappeared. "We will see." Olivia waited patiently. The exchange felt strangely balanced. Neither woman seemed interested in impressing the other. Around the dining room, several employees secretly watched from a distance. They expected tension. They expected discomfort. Instead, they saw something else. Curiosity. Sophia eventually ordered coffee and a simple dinner. Olivia wrote everything down and thanked her before walking away. As she left, she noticed something unusual. Resting beside Sophia's handbag was a small leather notebook. Elegant. Expensive. Clearly personal. She paid little attention to it. At least at first. Yet a few minutes later, while delivering coffee, Olivia caught a glimpse of something embossed in gold lettering on the notebook's cover. A name. Not Sophia. Not Whitmore. Just a brief glimpse before the notebook disappeared into Sophia's bag. Olivia continued serving without reaction. But the detail lingered quietly in her mind. Because sometimes the smallest details tell the biggest stories. And before the evening ended, that mysterious name would become the first clue in a secret nobody else had ever noticed. The mysterious name stayed in Olivia Bennett's mind long after the dinner rush ended. Not because she was trying to investigate it. Quite the opposite. She had learned years earlier that curiosity could easily become gossip, and gossip rarely led anywhere good. Still, some details refused to disappear. The gold lettering had appeared only for a second, a brief flash beneath the restaurant lights. Yet Olivia remained certain of one thing. The name embossed on the leather notebook had not been Sophia Whitmore. The following evening, Sterling House filled quickly. Rain had passed, leaving Manhattan shining beneath clear skies and reflections of city lights. The atmosphere felt lighter than the night before. Guests laughed more easily. Music drifted softly through the dining room. Olivia arrived for her shift expecting an ordinary evening. Then she noticed table 12 had been reserved again. The reservation name appeared exactly as expected. Sophia Whitmore. Several servers immediately noticed it as well. One quietly groaned. Another volunteered to handle 3 additional tables if someone else would take 12. Olivia simply smiled. I can do it. Her co-workers looked at her as though she had volunteered to walk into a storm. By 7:30, Sophia arrived. The same elegant confidence. The same composed expression. The same subtle tension that seemed to follow her everywhere. Yet tonight something appeared different. She carried the leather notebook openly instead of keeping it hidden inside her handbag. Olivia greeted her politely and escorted her to the window table. As she placed the menu down, Sophia looked up. You again. Olivia laughed softly. That sounds almost disappointed. To her surprise, a faint smile appeared on Sophia's face. It was not meant that way. The exchange lasted only seconds, but it felt strangely natural. Over the next hour, Olivia handled the table with the same professionalism she offered every guest. She never mentioned the notebook. Never mentioned the name she thought she had seen. Yet twice she noticed Sophia writing inside it between phone calls. The notebook clearly mattered. People did not carry objects like that unless they meant something. Later in the evening, an elderly woman entered the restaurant alone. The hostess recognized her immediately and greeted her warmly. Unfortunately, a reservation issue had created a delay. Several tables remained occupied longer than expected. The woman appeared embarrassed by the inconvenience. Before anyone else could respond, Sophia quietly stood from her table. She can have mine. The hostess blinked. Miss Whitmore, are you sure? Sophia nodded. I can wait at the lounge. The elderly woman looked surprised. That is not necessary. Sophia smiled politely. I insist. Olivia watched the entire interaction. It did not fit the reputation everyone described. The feared billionaire's daughter had just given away the best table in the restaurant without hesitation. More interestingly, she had done it when she thought nobody important was watching. 20 minutes later, Sophia sat alone in the lounge area near the fireplace. She continued writing in the notebook while waiting for another table. Olivia brought her coffee and placed it carefully beside her. Thank you for helping that woman. Sophia looked up, almost uncomfortable receiving praise. It was nothing. Most people would not have done it. Sophia closed the notebook gently. Most people assume many things about me. The statement lingered in the air. Olivia sensed there was more behind it, but chose not to ask. A few moments later, Sophia's phone rang. She answered immediately. Her voice softened in a way Olivia had not heard before. Yes, Grandma, she said warmly. I know. Olivia turned away to give her privacy. Yet before she left, she noticed the notebook lying partially open on the table. Once again, the gold lettering became visible beneath the light. This time she saw more than before. Not the entire name, just a single word. Eleanor. Olivia continued walking without reacting, but her heartbeat quickened slightly. Eleanor was definitely not Sophia, and now she knew the mysterious name was real. The question was no longer whether a secret existed. The question was why someone like Sophia Whitmore would carry another person's name so close to her heart. Over the next 2 weeks, Sophia Whitmore became a regular presence at Sterling House. Not because she suddenly enjoyed restaurants more than before. Not because her schedule had changed. And certainly not because she wanted attention. If anything, Sophia seemed to prefer avoiding attention whenever possible. Yet she continued returning. Always requesting the same window table. Always carrying the same leather notebook. And always leaving with the same quiet expression that revealed almost nothing. The staff remained cautious around her. Old reputations did not disappear overnight. Yet Olivia Bennett had started noticing something different. The woman everyone feared rarely behaved in ways that justified the fear. One evening, A young server accidentally spilled sparkling water while refilling a nearby table. The mistake was small but noticeable. The young man immediately turned pale when he realized part of the water had splashed near Sophia's place setting. Several employees froze. The server began apologizing before Sophia even looked up. "I am so sorry, Miss Whitmore. I apologize. I can replace everything immediately." Sophia glanced at the tablecloth, then at the terrified server. "It is water." The young man blinked. "Yes, ma'am. Then it will dry." She returned to her notebook. The entire crisis ended in less than 10 seconds. Later, Olivia found the same server standing near the kitchen looking confused. "What happened?" she asked. "Nothing." He looked genuinely stunned. "That is what happened." Olivia smiled but said nothing. The pattern continued. Every time Sophia visited, another piece of the public image seemed to fall apart. She thanked employees by name. She left generous tips. She patiently waited when the kitchen became busy. None of it matched the stories people told. Yet one thing never changed. The notebook. It remained close to her at all times. Some people carried expensive watches. Others carried family photographs. Sophia carried that notebook. One quiet Tuesday evening, the restaurant was nearly empty due to heavy rain. Thunder rolled softly beyond the windows while only a handful of customers occupied the dining room. Sophia sat alone at her usual table. Olivia occasionally checked on her between serving other guests. Around 8 o'clock, an elderly gentleman entered the restaurant. The hostess immediately greeted him. "Good evening, Mr. Reynolds." The man smiled warmly. He appeared to be in his late 70s. As he walked toward his table, his eyes unexpectedly landed on Sophia. He stopped immediately. For a brief moment, genuine surprise crossed his face. Then something even stranger happened. "Eleanor," he said quietly. Sophia looked up so quickly that Olivia almost missed it. The reaction lasted less than a second. But it was there. Shock. Real shock. The elderly man immediately seemed embarrassed. "I apologize," he said. "You reminded me of someone." Sophia smiled politely. Too politely. That happens sometimes. The man nodded and continued toward his table. The moment ended. Yet Olivia had witnessed enough to feel her curiosity deepen. Eleanor again. The same name from the notebook. The same name connected to an emotional reaction Sophia clearly had not expected. Later that evening, while delivering coffee, Olivia noticed something unusual. Sophia was no longer writing. Instead, she was staring out the rain-covered window. The notebook sat open beside her untouched cup. For a moment, the pages shifted slightly as air from a nearby vent moved through the room. Olivia looked away immediately. She had no intention of reading anything personal. Yet before she turned, she caught a glimpse of a handwritten sentence near the top of one page. It contained only a few words. "For Eleanor." Nothing more. No explanation. No context. Just those two words written carefully across the page. Olivia continued walking without changing her expression. But the mystery had become impossible to ignore. Eleanor was not a random name. Eleanor mattered. More importantly, Sophia Whitmore seemed determined to keep that fact hidden from the world. The question was no longer whether a secret existed. The question was why someone with everything would work so hard to protect a name nobody else seemed to know. The strange name should have become less important with time. Instead, it became harder to ignore. Not because Olivia Bennett searched for answers. She did not. Not because she asked questions. She never did. The mystery grew because the clues kept appearing on their own. 3 days after the rainy evening with Mr. Reynolds, Sophia Whitmore returned once again to Sterling House. The restaurant was busy that night. A technology conference had filled several nearby hotels, bringing executives and investors into Manhattan from across the country. The dining room buzzed with conversation. Expensive watches reflected the chandelier light. Business cards changed hands over dinner. Yet table 12 remained exactly the same. Sophia sat alone beside the window. The leather notebook rested beside her coffee cup. Olivia greeted her with the familiar professionalism that had gradually become routine. "Good evening." Sophia nodded. "Good evening, Olivia." There was something noticeably different about her mood. Not unhappy. Distracted. Several times, she checked her phone before returning to the notebook. At one point, she stared at a message for nearly a minute without responding. Olivia noticed, but thought little of it. Everyone carried invisible concerns. Later in the evening, a group of young women entered the restaurant celebrating a recent college graduation. Their excitement immediately brightened the dining room. Laughter echoed across nearby tables. One of them accidentally bumped into a chair while taking photographs. Another dropped a napkin and laughed at herself. Their joy felt genuine and contagious. As Olivia passed table 12, she noticed Sophia watching them. Not with irritation, not with judgment, something softer, almost nostalgic. Then one of the graduates approached Sophia unexpectedly. "Excuse me," the young woman said nervously. "Are you Sophia Whitmore?" Several heads turned. Public recognition was not unusual for Sophia. She smiled politely. "Yes." The young woman looked thrilled. "I just wanted to say that I admire your foundation scholarship program." Sophia thanked her warmly. The brief conversation ended pleasantly. Yet after the graduate returned to her friends, Olivia noticed something strange. Sophia's smile disappeared almost immediately. She looked down at the notebook and quietly traced her finger across the cover, as though remembering something or someone. A little later, while clearing nearby dishes, Olivia witnessed another detail. One of the scholarship recipients had sent a handwritten thank you letter to Sophia. The envelope sat partially open beside the notebook. Most of the letter remained hidden. Only a few lines were visible. Yet one sentence caught Olivia's attention before she looked away. "Because of your grandmother's story, I believed I could continue." Olivia continued walking, but her mind immediately returned to the same name. Eleanor. Grandma. The pieces were beginning to form a pattern. Not a complete picture, just enough to suggest direction. Near closing time, Sophia remained one of the final guests in the restaurant. Most tables sat empty. Employees prepared for the end of the shift. Soft jazz played quietly through overhead speakers. Outside, Manhattan traffic flowed beneath glowing streetlights. Olivia approached to refill Sophia's coffee one final time. As she poured, a folded photograph slipped from inside the notebook and landed gently beside the cup. Sophia reached for it immediately. Too late. The image was visible for only a second. Yet Olivia noticed enough. An elderly woman stood smiling beside a much younger Sophia. Both were standing in front of a small bookstore. Neither wore designer clothing. Neither appeared wealthy. They simply looked happy. Sophia carefully picked up the photograph and returned it to the notebook. For the first time since they met, genuine vulnerability crossed her face. It vanished almost immediately. But Olivia had seen it. "Someone important?" Olivia asked softly. The question escaped before she could stop herself. Sophia stared at the notebook. Several seconds passed. Then she nodded. "The most important." Her voice sounded different. Quieter. More honest. Olivia offered a gentle smile and did not ask another question. She understood something now. Whatever secret surrounded Eleanor was not a scandal. Not a deception. Not something shameful. The emotion in Sophia's eyes had revealed far more than any explanation could. The hidden name belonged to someone deeply loved. And for reasons Olivia still could not understand, Sophia Whitmore seemed determined to carry that love in silence. By the beginning of autumn, Sophia Whitmore had become one of the most familiar faces at Sterling House. Not because she demanded attention. Not because she arrived with photographers or business associates. Most evenings, she came alone. She ordered simple meals. She spent time writing in the leather notebook. Then she disappeared back into the city. Yet the mystery surrounding her seemed larger than ever. Olivia Bennet still had no intention of investigating. She respected boundaries too much for that. But observation required no effort. Details appeared naturally when someone paid attention. And Sophia continued leaving small clues everywhere she went. One Friday evening, Sterling House hosted a private fundraising dinner for several educational charities. The event attracted donors, nonprofit directors, and scholarship recipients from across New York. The atmosphere felt warm and optimistic. Stories of opportunity and second chances filled the room. Many guests spoke about teachers, mentors, and family members who had changed their lives. Sophia arrived shortly before the event began. Unlike many attendees, she seemed uncomfortable with the attention surrounding philanthropy. While others enjoyed discussing contributions and accomplishments, Sophia appeared more interested in listening. Olivia noticed that immediately. During the dinner, a scholarship recipient was invited to share her story. The young woman stood nervously before the audience and described growing up in a small town with limited opportunities. She explained how a scholarship had allowed her to attend college and pursue her dream of becoming a teacher. Several guests applauded. Some wiped away tears. Then the young woman said something unexpected. I never met the woman whose story inspired the scholarship program, she said. But I know her name was Eleanor. The room remained quiet. Across the dining area, Olivia instinctively looked toward Sophia. The reaction was immediate. Sophia froze. Not dramatically, just enough for someone paying attention to notice. Her hand stopped moving. Her eyes lowered toward the table. The young speaker continued. I was told Eleanor believed every child deserved someone who believed in them. A few people smiled warmly. The audience applauded again. Sophia did not. She simply stared at her coffee cup. Later that evening, after most guests had left, Olivia carried a fresh pot of coffee toward table 12. Sophia remained seated alone near the windows. Manhattan glowed beneath the night sky beyond the glass. The city seemed distant from the quiet that surrounded her. Olivia poured the coffee carefully. Neither woman spoke for a moment. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. Did you enjoy the event? Olivia nodded. Very much. Sophia stared into the dark surface of the coffee. The young speaker was impressive. She was. Another silence followed. Then Sophia asked a question that surprised Olivia. Do you believe people are remembered correctly? Olivia thought about it. Sometimes. Sophia looked up. Only sometimes. Olivia smiled gently. Most people remember achievements. It is harder to remember ordinary kindness. Something changed in Sophia's expression. Not sadness exactly. Recognition. That is true. Olivia noticed her fingers resting on the leather notebook. The people who matter most to us are usually remembered through small things. Sophia did not answer immediately. Several seconds passed. Then she looked out the window. My grandmother used to say that. Olivia felt a quiet realization settle into place. Not because she had learned something new. Because she had finally heard Sophia speak about Eleanor openly. Just once. Just a few words. Yet those words carried more emotion than anything else she had said in months. She sounds wise, Olivia replied. Sophia laughed. Softly. A genuine laugh. She was. For a moment the distance that usually surrounded her disappeared completely. The billionaire's daughter vanished. The public figure vanished. What remained was simply a granddaughter remembering someone she loved. Then the moment passed. Sophia closed the notebook and stood. Good night, Olivia. Good night. As Sophia walked toward the entrance, Olivia noticed something she had never considered before. Perhaps the hidden name was not something Sophia was protecting from the world. Perhaps it was something she was protecting for the world. A memory too important to reduce into headlines and public stories. And if that was true, the mystery was becoming far more meaningful than Olivia had ever imagined. The first snowfall of the season arrived earlier than expected. Soft white flakes drifted across Manhattan and settled along the sidewalks outside Sterling House. Inside, the restaurant glowed with warmth. Guests escaped the cold and gathered beneath golden chandeliers, while quiet music floated through the dining room. Olivia Bennet had always loved evenings like this. Snow seemed to slow the city down just enough for people to notice one another. Shortly after 7 o'clock, Sophia Whitmore entered carrying her familiar leather notebook. The moment Olivia saw her, she sensed something was different. Not wrong. Different. Sophia's expression seemed lighter. The guarded distance she usually carried had softened over the past few weeks. The change was subtle enough that most people would never notice. Olivia noticed immediately. After all, noticing small things was how this entire mystery had begun. Sophia settled into her usual seat near the window and ordered coffee. As snow continued falling outside, the restaurant filled steadily. Families shared holiday plans. Business partners celebrated successful years. Friends exchanged gifts wrapped in silver ribbon. The atmosphere felt unusually hopeful. Halfway through the evening, a young reporter entered the restaurant. Olivia recognized him from local newspapers. Several guests recognized him as well. He spotted Sophia almost instantly. A few moments later he approached her. Table respectfully. Miss Whitmore, I apologize for interrupting. Sophia looked up. Her smile disappeared. Not out of anger. Out of caution. Yes. The reporter hesitated. I was hoping to ask a few questions about your foundation's upcoming expansion. Sophia remained polite. Tonight is not the best time. The reporter nodded but continued. There has been growing interest in the story behind the scholarship program. Olivia happened to be serving a nearby table and could not help overhearing the conversation. Sophia's posture changed slightly. The reporter continued. Many people are curious about the name connected to the program. For the first time, genuine tension appeared in Sophia's eyes. "Which name?" she asked quietly. "Eleanor." The reporter spoke carefully. Nobody seems to know who she was. The restaurant noise suddenly felt very far away. Sophia looked down at the notebook resting beside her coffee. Several seconds passed. The reporter seemed to realize he had crossed into something personal. "I apologize if the question is inappropriate." Sophia surprised him by shaking her head. "It is not inappropriate." Her voice remained calm. "I simply do not discuss her publicly." The reporter nodded respectfully and stepped away. The conversation lasted less than a minute, yet its impact lingered long afterward. Later that evening, after the dinner rush faded, Olivia refilled Sophia's coffee. Snow continued falling beyond the windows. The city looked almost peaceful. Neither woman spoke immediately. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. "Everyone wants a story." Olivia smiled gently. "That comes with being famous." Sophia laughed softly. "The strange part is that the story they want is never the important one." Olivia considered that. Maybe the important stories are harder to explain. Sophia looked toward the snow. Or harder to protect. The answer carried more meaning than the words themselves. Olivia sensed it immediately. "You are protecting her memory." Sophia looked surprised. Not because Olivia had solved the mystery. Because someone had understood without demanding an explanation. The silence between them felt different now. Comfortable. Honest. Sophia rested her hand lightly on the notebook cover. "People think money changes everything." Her eyes remained fixed on the falling snow. But some things become more valuable precisely because they cannot be bought. Olivia followed her gaze toward the window. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Sophia smiled. A real smile. Warm and unguarded. "My grandmother used to bring me to a tiny bookstore every Saturday." Olivia listened quietly. It was the first personal memory Sophia had ever volunteered. She believed stories could save people. Sophia laughed softly. "At the time, I thought she was exaggerating." Olivia glanced at the notebook. "And now?" Sophia's eyes softened. "Now I think she was right." Outside, snow continued covering the city. Inside, the mystery surrounding Eleanor had become clearer than ever. Not because Olivia finally knew the whole truth, but because she finally understood its heart. Eleanor was not a secret Sophia was hiding out of shame. Eleanor was a treasure she was protecting out of love. And somehow that realization made the hidden name far more powerful than any public explanation ever could. December arrived with a rush of activity that transformed Manhattan into a sea of lights and celebration. Every evening, Sterling House filled with holiday dinners, corporate parties, and family gatherings. Reservations stretched weeks into the future. The restaurant seemed to glow brighter than usual beneath garlands, candles, and silver decorations. Yet despite the crowded season, one date stood apart from all the others. A private charity gala had reserved nearly the entire restaurant. The event was organized by the Whitmore Foundation and would bring together donors, educators, scholarship recipients, and members of New York society. For weeks, local newspapers had discussed the gala. Reporters planned to attend. Photographers would be present. Everyone expected Sophia Whitmore to stand at the center of the evening. Olivia Bennett learned about the event from the manager during a staff meeting. As assignments were distributed, she noticed something unusual. Sophia had personally requested Sterling House for the gala. More surprising still, she had requested many of the same employees who normally served her during regular visits. Nobody understood why. The night finally arrived beneath a sky filled with fresh snow. Elegant cars lined the street outside. Guests stepped through the entrance wearing formal attire while cameras flashed near the front doors. Inside, the restaurant looked transformed. Crystal centerpieces reflected golden light across every table. A small stage stood near the far end of the dining room. Everything felt important. Olivia moved between tables carrying silver trays while guests discussed philanthropy, education, and future projects. Scholarship recipients shared stories with donors. Community leaders exchanged ideas. The atmosphere felt hopeful. Throughout the evening, Sophia greeted guests with practiced professionalism. She smiled for photographs, answered questions, thanked supporters. Yet Olivia noticed something familiar. Despite the crowd, Sophia occasionally touched the leather notebook resting near her place at the head table. As though reassuring herself, it was still there. Near the middle of the gala, The foundation director stepped onto the stage to introduce the evening's keynote presentation. The room gradually quieted. Conversations faded. Glasses settled onto tablecloths. Then the director smiled and addressed the audience. Tonight, we celebrate opportunities created through generosity and education. But before we discuss the future, we would like to honor the person whose values inspired everything we do. Olivia immediately felt her attention sharpen. Across the room, Sophia lowered her eyes. The director continued. Many of you know the scholarship initiative by name. Few know the story behind it. A large screen illuminated behind the stage. The first photograph appeared. An elderly woman standing outside a small bookstore. Olivia recognized her instantly. The same woman from the photograph she had glimpsed months earlier. The same woman connected to the hidden name. The room remained silent. The director smiled warmly. This is Eleanor. For the first time, hundreds of people heard the name openly. Yet what surprised Olivia most was not the revelation itself. It was Sophia's reaction. She looked neither proud nor relieved. She looked emotional, deeply emotional. The director continued describing Eleanor's life. A retired teacher, a lover of books, a woman who spent decades encouraging children to dream beyond their circumstances. Several scholarship recipients listened with tears in their eyes. Others smiled. The story felt powerful precisely because it sounded ordinary. Eleanor had never been famous, never wealthy, never influential in the traditional sense. Yet her kindness had changed lives. As the presentation ended, the audience rose to its feet in applause. Olivia looked toward Sophia. She expected someone accustomed to public recognition. Instead, she saw a granddaughter quietly holding a notebook against her chest. The applause continued. Sophia remained seated, her eyes fixed on the photograph displayed above the stage. In that moment, Olivia finally understood something important. The hidden name had never belonged to a secret identity. It belonged to the real identity Sophia valued most. Not billionaire's daughter, not social figure, not foundation leader, granddaughter. The realization settled gently into place. Yet one question remained unanswered. If Eleanor's story could inspire an entire room filled with strangers, why had Sophia spent so long hiding her name from the world? The answer arrived sooner than either woman expected. The applause gradually faded, but the feeling it created remained in the room long afterward. Guests returned to their conversations with a new understanding. Scholarship recipients discussed Eleanor's story. Donors reflected on the quiet teacher whose influence had reached people she would never meet. Reporters lowered their cameras. For the first time that evening, the focus had shifted away from wealth and towards something far more meaningful. Sophia Whitmore remained seated for several moments after the presentation ended. The leather notebook rested in her hands. She looked neither uncomfortable nor proud. She looked thoughtful, almost relieved. Olivia Bennet continued serving tables throughout the remainder of the gala, but she noticed something unusual. The atmosphere around Sophia had changed completely. Earlier in the evening, guests approached her because of her last name. Now they approached because of Eleanor. They wanted to hear stories. Not business stories. Not foundation statistics. Personal stories. Human stories. Near the end of the event, a young scholarship recipient approached Sophia with tears in her eyes. "I wish I could have met her," she said softly. Sophia smiled. "You would have liked her." "How do you know?" the young woman asked. Sophia laughed quietly. "Because she liked everyone." The answer seemed simple, yet it carried the weight of genuine memory. As midnight approached, the gala slowly began to wind down. Guests collected coats. Farewells filled the dining room. The snow outside reflected city lights like scattered diamonds across the sidewalks. Inside Sterling House, employees began clearing tables and preparing for closing. Olivia was carrying a tray toward the service station when she heard someone call her name. "Olivia." She turned. Sophia stood beside the window table. For a moment, Olivia assumed she needed something. Instead, Sophia held out a chair. "Would you sit for a minute?" The request surprised her. After confirming her duties were complete, Olivia joined her. The restaurant had grown quiet enough that only distant conversations remained. Sophia rested one hand on the notebook. "There is something I have wanted to ask you." Olivia smiled. "All right." Sophia studied her carefully. "When did you first notice the name?" The question arrived so unexpectedly that Olivia almost laughed. "The notebook." Sophia nodded. "I know you noticed." Olivia considered her answer. "A long time ago. Why did you never ask? Olivia looked toward the snowy street outside. Because it was yours. Sophia remained silent. Olivia continued. Most people think curiosity gives them ownership over someone else's story. Sophia lowered her eyes. And you do not. Olivia shook her head. People tell the important stories when they are ready. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Then Sophia smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached her eyes. You were the only person who figured out there was something hidden. Olivia laughed softly. Apparently not. An entire room just learned about Eleanor. Sophia shook her head. They learned her name. Her fingers touched the notebook cover. You understood her importance before anyone explained it. The statement lingered in the quiet restaurant. Olivia did not know how to respond. Finally, she said, the clues were everywhere. Sophia smiled. Exactly. She opened the notebook and carefully turned several pages. Photographs appeared. Handwritten notes. Pressed flowers. Old receipts. Small pieces of a life preserved through memory. Then Sophia revealed the first page. At the top, written in elegant handwriting, were 3 simple words. For Eleanor always. Olivia looked at the page and suddenly understood everything. The notebook was not a journal. It was a promise. A promise to remember. A promise to honor. A promise to carry forward the lessons of someone who had shaped her life. Sophia closed the notebook gently. The reason I never talked about her publicly is simple. Olivia waited. Sophia looked out at the falling snow. The world already knew who I was supposed to be. Her voice softened. Eleanor was the person who taught me who I wanted to be. The answer settled quietly between them. Outside, snow continued falling across Manhattan. Inside Sterling House, the mystery that had begun with a hidden name was finally approaching its truth. Yet the most important part of the story had not been revealed on a stage or in a speech. It had appeared through dozens of small details that everyone else had overlooked. And before the night ended, Sophia would share the final piece that explained why Eleanor's name had remained hidden for so many years. The restaurant had nearly emptied by the time Sophia Whitmore shared the final truth. Snow continued falling beyond the tall windows of Sterling House, covering the streets in a quiet white blanket. The city still moved outside, but inside the restaurant everything felt still. Olivia Bennett sat across from Sophia at the window table where the mystery had first begun months earlier. The leather notebook rested between them. No longer hidden. No longer guarded. Sophia looked down at it for several moments before speaking. Most people believe Eleanor was my grandmother's name. Olivia listened quietly. It was not. Sophia smiled gently. It was. But that is only part of the story. She opened the notebook again and carefully removed an old photograph Olivia had never seen before. In the picture, a young Eleanor stood beside a small bookstore. The building looked modest. Ordinary. The kind of place people passed without noticing. My family was not wealthy when I was a child, Sophia said. The newspapers never mentioned that part. Olivia studied the photograph. What happened? Sophia looked toward the snow-covered street. My grandfather built the company years later. Before that, we struggled. Her fingers lightly touched the edge of the photograph. Eleanor owned that bookstore. It barely earned enough money to survive. Olivia remained silent. Sophia continued. People remember my family for success. I remember Eleanor for sacrifice. The words carried a weight no headline could capture. Every scholarship, every foundation program, every opportunity we provide today began because of her. Olivia glanced at the notebook. Suddenly, every clue made sense. The photographs, the letters, the pressed flowers, the careful notes. They were not memories of a famous woman. They were memories of the person who had quietly changed everything. Sophia smiled softly. When I was 12 years old, I asked her why she worked so hard for people she did not know. Olivia leaned forward slightly. Sophia laughed at the memory. She told me something I never forgot. For a moment, she looked toward the ceiling as though hearing Eleanor's voice again. Then she said, she told me that the world changes every time someone feels seen. The restaurant seemed even quieter afterward. Olivia understood why the words mattered. Eleanor had spent her life helping people feel seen. Students, customers, neighbors, children with dreams. The scholarships were simply a continuation of that belief. So why keep her hidden? Olivia finally asked. Sophia smiled. Not sadly, peacefully. Because the world loves famous names. She looked at the photograph. I was afraid they would turn her into a symbol and forget she was a person? The answer felt honest. Completely honest. Sophia closed the notebook and gently returned the photograph inside. Tonight was the first time I felt ready. Olivia nodded. Because people finally heard the real story. Sophia smiled. Because one waitress reminded me that the right people notice what actually matters. For the first time since they met, neither woman seemed separated by status, wealth, or reputation. One was a billionaire's daughter. One was a waitress. Yet none of that mattered anymore. They were simply two people sharing a conversation about someone who had left the world better than she found it. A few minutes later, Sophia stood and prepared to leave. She picked up the notebook and slipped it carefully into her handbag. Then she paused. Thank you, Olivia. Olivia looked surprised. For what? Sophia smiled warmly. For seeing Eleanor before you ever knew her story. Outside, snow continued falling across Manhattan. Inside, the final piece of the mystery settled quietly into place. The hidden name had never been a secret of shame. It had been a private act of love. A promise carried through years of success, attention, and public expectations. As Sophia stepped toward the door, Olivia watched her disappear into the winter night. Then she looked once more at the empty table beside the window. The place where every clue had appeared. The place where a hidden name had finally found its voice. And she remembered something Eleanor had unknowingly taught both of them. The deepest truths are rarely hidden by lies. They are hidden by love waiting for the right moment to be understood.